It's episode 332 on January 17th, 2022. I'm going to just try that again. Didn't even make a sentence.
He'll fix it in post. Don't worry, guys.
It's episode 332 on January 17th, 2022 on Canadian Patriot Podcast. This is John McDonald with Music and Truth Until Dawn. Right now, I've got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. It's 9 o'clock Canadian, another day closer to victory, and for all of you out there on or behind the line, this is your song.
And we'd love to hear your feedback about the show. So please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. Your feedback, we will read it. And it may spawn one hell of a autistic episode. So send it on in. It's good times.
We need your help to support the Canadian Patriot Podcast. Visit patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon. You can get a better quality version of the show for just $1. Sure you're not a communist, buy a CPP t-shirt for just $24.99 plus shipping and theft. Visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. And as always, follow the link on the right.
I need to make an apology to Off the Wall Customizing, Pierre, Melissa. I did end up receiving a customized email regarding the status of my sweater order, which I have also received. So I assume, and based on posts on Instagram, I assume most people have received their sweaters at this point. And if you have not gotten your sweater, you've at least gotten your customized email with the tracking information for your sweater.
Yes. Thankfully, I was literally lying in bed. And it's like 11:30. It's like, oh fuck, I gotta send him an email, and I just like copied everything and I sent it. But yeah, so
it was
everything
funny.
is out.
It was very funny because I was going to bed and the phone dinged, and I was like, "Oh, that's very good. I like this. This is quite entertaining." I tried to show my wife, but she was asleep and didn't care.
Yeah. Also, a quick shout out to Melissa. It's her birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday, Melissa.
Yes.
I'm not sure why Pierre is on the show, given that it's his spouse's birthday.
She's in a bath.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Let's do my favorite segment. It's plausible deniability for Pierre. We'll start with Pierre. What are you drinking?
Canadian whiskey. Straight.
Nice.
Nice.
Brian, what are you drinking?
I'm just going with the good old style Pilsner.
All right. Gavin has disappeared, so we'll ask him when he comes back. I have something new, something very exciting, something that I'm very interested to get Brian's reaction to. I have Heeman's handcrafted mead from Thorndale, Ontario. This is their Cherry Jubilee. It's a 7% mead, and it's kind of red colored.
It looks like a cherry Kool-Aid.
It tastes not unlike cherry Kool-Aid, if it also tastes like
you know what? That's not too bad.
It's a little bit medicine-y, like a little bit, but I think that might just be the 7%.
It's like drinking cough syrup.
It's not unlike drinking cough syrup. No, it's for everyone that remembers when Marty has been on the show in the past. Marty has complained about how mead tastes like cough syrup, and he's never found a good one. This is that kind of flavor profile. It's not bad for a commercial mead.
Compared to Buckley's, what are we talking?
I mean, I would 100% drink this at 7%.
But will it stop you from coughing?
So far, so good. I haven't coughed yet on the show.
Well, there you go. Sold.
Gavin, now that you're back, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking some Wisers and Diet Pepsi this evening.
Wow. And I'm going to have to update the show notes. I can't just copy and paste the usual.
Well, I had to open a new bottle. Had time to go to the liquor store because apparently, we got some snow in Ontario today.
What?
Yes.
I am very tired of hearing about people in Toronto having gotten snow.
We got a little
What do I
bit.
know about Toronto?
Me neither.
I've been on many conference calls today listening to people tell me about how they've had snow. Like it's a novelty.
You should have seen it. It was all white and fluffy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had to shovel. We live in Ontario. We had to shovel, guys.
Shovel. I have a snowblower for that.
Agreed.
Well, I had to dust my truck off.
Yeah, same boat there, Brian. I had to get out the whole snow brush. And
Snow rush.
that's it. That was like that's the extent of the work I was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was tough. It was tough.
Fuck you guys too.
If you happen to live in the butthole, either of the buttholes of Ontario, since we haven't decided if that's Ottawa or Toronto, see previous episodes for that discussion.
That's because they tore us a new one with the new taxes.
Well,
Hi-yo.
if you live in the places where they got snow and you're looking to do your 45 minutes of exercise, you could go clean your driveway off, or the most famous Canadian sport, cleaning up after the snowplow for the fourth time.
Well,
Yeah.
But make sure you're doing stuff to be a better person. So we've got the Patriot challenge that you can go and grab the template off the website, share it on your social media, exercise for 45 minutes, practice a skill for 10 minutes. I don't think cleaning your driveway out counts for both of those. It's an either or proposition.
but fixing your snowblower could count as practicing the skill.
Or trying a different
that's-
technique on lifting.
That's right. Lift with your children, not with your back.
Yes, that's a much easier way.
But if the plow brings it by and you're picking up chunks, you could practice the skill of getting rid of the commies.
Yeah. Just if you do happen to be out there when the plow comes by, make sure that you give him some solid eye contact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing
He
sucks
who looks
more
away
than, like,
first is.
Yeah.
nothing
It's
sucks
all
more
about
than when
asserting
you're
your
done
dominance.
everything. Assert dominance. Yeah, you're done everything and then the plow drives by and you're like, fuck. Yeah. Well, no fun.
He's just doing his job.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
well, and I don't
sure.
fault anybody doing that. We've got friends that drive plows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll say it to their face, they're assholes. That's why we're friends.
Yeah, well, part of this is why you need to assert dominance, because like if that guy's my buddy Matt, and he goes by my house, I know he knows where I live. So like, I'm going to stand there and I'm going to make awkward eye contact,
Yeah.
pants around my ankles and everything.
Awkward,
Yeah.
awkward eye contact while urinating in your front lawn.
Yeah,
There you
well,
go.
I mean, you got to assert dominance.
So it's Tuesday.
Where did we leave off? Practice a skill, read a book for 15 minutes, and drink your 2 liters of water, which again could be related to going and shoveling your snow. Stay hydrated. It's important.
Mhm. Or you lock up.
Right. We don't want that. I also think we're going to start an events section in the podcast because we don't really do upcoming events, but I saw something come out. I think actually Brian is the first person that sent it to me, if I'm not mistaken. But the CCFR, the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights, has announced a National Range Day on Saturday, June the 4th. More details to follow. They have a website. It's nationalrangeday.ca. There's a presser on the CCFR website. This is your opportunity to go and talk to your local gun club and say that you want to hold an event. I believe from the press release, the intention of this is to get the non-shooting, non-gun owning community involved in the shooting sports and have a day at the range.
That's what it sounded like in the podcast I listened to, that he, when they announced this idea, that's kind of what it seemed like. Basically, they
you
were
see,
hoping like,
I don't
Sorry,
listen
go
to the CCFR podcast because I have this rule where if Rod won't come on my show, I won't listen to his.
Yeah.
ah,
Yeah. I mean, we're starting to
But-
think that he doesn't like us with all of the excuses he has to not be on the show. I mean, we keep
oh, he's
asking.
been bumped a couple times. He's been bumped a couple times, if I remember correctly.
That's true. He has been bumped on more than one occasion. But I mean, really, that's just poor management.
Yeah.
His people should
I'm
talk
sure,
to other people.
Yeah.
I'm sure if we really tried, we could probably get Rod to make an appearance on this. Maybe. What day does that fall on? It's probably on a weekend. I was
It's
going to say if it
Saturday.
was, it's Saturday, June the 4th.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe the Monday following, you can come on and talk about it.
You know what? I think I'm actually I'm going to reach out to the CCFR, send Tracy or someone else I know an email and ask if we can do a promo with them and talk about what their plans are and how to organize this and what people can do to get more involved, because I am very keen on this idea, and I will be talking to my board of directors at my local gun club.
Good.
Several of my local gun clubs. I will be talking to my cohort on the board of the gun club of which I sit on the board. I will probably be talking to other gun clubs of which I am a member and let them know that this is going on. Obviously, I'm not going to be in 4 or 5 ranges at the same day at the same time running events, because there's one of me and that's not feasible. But I think that the more of this that we put on and the more people that we get out and make a press spectacle of it and have millions of Canadians shooting in a coordinated fashion at a coordinated time with zero safety issues or legal issues, that would behoove the shooting community to have some positive press coverage.
Well, I
Yeah,
agree.
agreed. I
You
thought
know,
it was
yeah,
a
if
great
you're-
idea. when I heard about it.
Yeah.
If it
if
takes
you're-
off anyway.
Well, I'm sure that we could get something going. We have some reach, you know.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
like
that's why I sent it to
tens
Andrew,
of people
that,
that listen to us.
That's right. So if you belong to a gun club, you should go and talk to your board of directors or organizers or whoever it is that's in charge of the range and tell them about the event that's going on and direct them to the CCFR. And you should maybe make some friends and then organize an event, because this is going to be I think this is going to be a self-starter kind of an opportunity here. So if you wanted to get into doing something that's not, I don't know, New Shooter Canada trying to start an IDPA league, for example. Nothing against that idea. I think it's a great idea. I just also know it's a lot of work. Yeah. This might be something to try to get more people out to go shoot for the day and have a good time and involve a bunch of members of the range.
It would be a great starter event for people.
How do you get new people to come out though? Like, what's the best idea to try and reach new folks to come out and do some shooting?
Have you tried asking your non-gun owning friends if they just want to come out for a fun day at the range? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I don't really have too many of those.
Yeah, you see, but you don't have too many of those, but that means that you do have a few of them. Start there. And, you know, if you don't have a membership at a range, take your friends out onto Crown land and shoot safely and legally on Crown land. And you could do the same thing and bring everyone, bring your family, and like take lots of fun, happy, positive photos and post the shit out of it on social media.
Well, it's the CCFR. I'm sure Tracy and company will have some sort of organized social media campaign, and they will figure out some hashtags and all of the branding stuff that they do so well.
Yes.
I think right now, go read the CCFR press release. Notice that this is happening. And if you're a member of a gun club, start talking to your gun club about getting this in the calendar and getting it set up and reserving the date so that you're not causing a conflict with other events that are going on. Because it is, like, that is the first weekend in June. So it's the beginning of summer, right? Kids are out of school then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shall we get into some news?
So bring your kids. Get your kids shooting.
Absolutely.
All right. First one, National Post. Item that we've talked about before. An item that brings me no amount of grief.
Government?
Matt, well, yes. Government incompetence. I know, a theme on the on the podcast, but Matt Gurney article in the National Post. Canada's bid to replace World War II era pistols, a case study in government incompetence. Truer words, my friends. Truer words.
I mean, with all the new announcements lately, like Springfield announced a new high power, and FN announced a new high power.
FN announced a new high power?
Yeah. That's the latest SHOT Show excitement is FN high power. So everyone at Springfield is now on suicide watch. With
like that must have just been like just today at SHOT Show.
Yeah, that was the hot news that dropped today. FN high powers. So they won't even have to like upgrade their holsters. They could just get new high powers.
I kind of want a new FN high power.
Yeah, I'd rock one of those. Like, definitely over a Springfield.
Well, I looked at a Springfield in a local gun store recently because I happened to be in and they had one. And I looked at that's a new high power. I don't understand. Oh, that's a Springfield high power. I definitely don't understand.
Yeah.
Can I please handle and disassemble this firearm?
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, an FN one would be pretty baller.
An FN, that would be very cool. I mean, if only I could get an FAL to go with it.
God, yeah. That'd
Yeah,
be so
my
good.
reenactor outfit that I'm working on.
Yeah.
So of course it involves short shorts.
I mean, what outfit doesn't?
Yeah.
So for everybody that's not aware, our military still uses the FN high power, the same FN high power, not the new Springfields, not the very new FNs that just dropped.
Yeah.
One of those magazines, like I'm not too familiar with them. Are they single stack, double stack?
It's a 1911
double-stack
that's not a
13 round.
1911, basically.
Well, no, so, sort of. So it's a double stack 13 round Browning. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Browning 9.
Yeah. It's very similar in design to a 1911, at least from the outside, sort of looking at it, but it's not quite.
It has a lot of
I'd love to
commonalities
look
with
at
it.
one. I've just never shot one before.
Yeah.
They're not great. They're not great because they're all 80 years old.
Well, and that's the problem. It's not that Canada's stuck using this design, like Andrew says. It's the same pistols that we took to war.
Literally guns
ago.
that were made in the 40s. Yeah. A lot of them made by Inglis in London, Ontario. Inglis, the appliance manufacturer that made like dishwashers and things, clothes washers. They made a lot of the high powers. There were other tooling companies that made them, but the Inglis ones are particularly good examples.
Yeah.
They're not great pistols.
And why don't
In
the
large
armed
part due
forces
to
just
their
have
age.
like SIGs or Glocks or something like that?
Well, some units within the military do have SIGs and Glocks. The Navy boarding parties use the 229, if I'm not mistaken, the SIG 229. And I believe the MPs, the military police, are using the 229 or the 226 for a while. I think they may have switched to Glock. CANSOFCOM, I also believe, is running Glocks. So the Special Operations Command is running Glocks. CSOR and JTF2.
Yeah. But
So this is the stuff
average,
just like your average GI gets, basically.
yeah.
Anybody who gets a pistol that's not like a super cool dude, so if you're not like on a Navy shipboarding team or part of the Special Operations Command, you get an 80-year-old high power if you get a pistol. And they're not
And that's
big on
just
giving
to
out
save
pistols.
money? Like
Well,
how much more money would it be to give Glocks to them? It can't be
It's
that much
because
more.
we're kind of incompetent. We started trying to... So we've talked about this on the podcast a couple of times in the past, because the government has tried to replace the high power 3 times in recent memory. 2011, 2016, and 2021. And all 3 times it has failed miserably, and we still have the high power. The 2011 bid, I think, went on for like 6 or 8 years and got nowhere.
What were the rumblings of what might replace it? Like The Beretta.
For a while they talked about the Beretta. They've also talked about SIGs. They've talked about Glocks. In 2021, the argument from I don't remember the government agency's name. It's not called Procurement Canada, but it's the procurement arm of the federal government. Wrote a tender that no one responded to because it was very lopsided, and they seemed like they wanted to go to the CPP332 because they had very specific external safety, drop safe requirement type things. They wanted, I think it had to have an external safety, a magazine disconnect,
all of
striker
the things
fire,
to make it like idiot.
like
proof
it
modern.
was super duper idiot proof.
Yeah, idiot proof meaning that like it'd be very difficult to shoot the gun without intending to shoot the gun.
So I think,
But
I
I mean-
think the 320 is the only thing that fit the bill, and it had to be a specific type of CPP332. It was,
Yeah,
I don't remember the model, but
the one that doesn't
basically,
blow up when you drop it. Yeah,
but basically, like no one responded to the tender, so procurement just gave up on it, and we're back to the drawing board. At the same
So basically,
time,
nobody wanted to do business with the Canadian military.
well, the way that the tender was written, the way that they asked for the bids to be made, it was basically only one gun that would meet their criteria, and I think it was a specific model of the CPP332.
Oh, I see. So they basically put this out, and the gun manufacturers were like,
Yeah, because they said
crazy.
like,
yeah.
so I need to buy a truck, but it has to be red.
Yeah.
It has to be made in Detroit. It has to have a 5-liter
Yeah.
V8, and it has to say Ford on the front.
Yeah. But the problem with that is if Ford goes, we don't want your business, no one else can bid either, right? Like,
yeah.
because they're like, I don't have a thing that matches this. So, but I mean, I just sort of crunched some quick numbers here. So there's roughly 68,000 Reg Force members. So if like a quarter of those get issued pistols, and you get a Glock at what, $500 a piece would be a deal.
Well,
You're still
mean,
looking
so,
like 8 million.
yes, that would be a deal, but also look at how much we spent on machine guns.
No,
from Canada.
I'm just like, I'm just saying, like, if you did like normal business, you'd be buying like on a deal because you're buying bulk, but our government likes to do the opposite.
Yes,
And they'll pay
because
more.
if we did something like we want to buy 5,000
Yeah.
of these a year for 5 years or something.
Yeah, they'll give you a deal.
So
Like, that's
another
how
question, though. Another question.
But you're
if,
looking $8.5 million for that, and that's assuming that like a quarter of the people, it's probably maybe a little bit more, maybe a little less. But then they're also going to need to buy extras and parts and all of the other things. So $8 to $10 million on a conservative estimate of how much it would cost to outfit them with new
Well-
pistols, which I know is not a lot of money when you're dealing like national defense, but our government doesn't like spending money on national defense. $8 to $10
Let's
million
do-
on a
let's do a little
stupid couch that travels the country, not a fucking
Compare and
problem.
contrast. Little compare and contrast. The Brits had to recently replace their high powers with a more modern pistol, and they went with Glock. And the British government spent 2 years and $15 million to replace all their high powers with Glocks. It was definitely achievable.
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
same time period, our government was talking about spending $100 million over 20 years to replace our pistols. I don't know how many there are, and it's probably not one per Reg Force member, but it's probably somewhere like in that neighborhood. By the time that you figure you have to give them to local armories for the reservists to train on, you have to have some at depot for like training, you have to have a bunch of major ranges for training, you have to have all the spare parts stuff, you have to have all the Reg Force units that need them, so on and so on. Like, so we're talking about like tens of thousands of firearms.
what
but
would they do with
also-
all the old high powers? What do you think? If it
No,
was
uh,
like a
Two
perfect,
likely
a cool
outcomes.
country, could
they
they end up
probably
in the
get
civilian
destroyed.
market?
They might, very unlikely.
Yeah.
Not to say that they couldn't, because it is
But
possible.
like, if they were
I,
smart and they sold it to the civilian market, wouldn't they make up some of the money?
I
back
think that
they
there could be
outfitted?
some cost recuperation there. They
Yeah, I
have
mean-
surplus other things in the past. Like I have a surplus C8 upper, or like a Damaco Canadian Forces C8 upper. So they have definitely surplus components. I've not seen them surplus a whole rifle, and they had this problem with the Enfields for a while. They had a bunch in war stock that they gave to the Rangers, and when the Rangers upgraded to the new Ranger rifle, they destroyed the old Lee Enfields. I mean, part of that is because the old Lee Enfields were in horrendous shape for the most part, which, same thing with the high powers, most of them are going to be in horrendous shape. Not to say there's probably not some collectibles. There might be a case of like new old stock somewhere that's never been issued, but on the whole, they're in pretty sad
I also
state.
imagine, I mean, for certain things, it'd be easy, like an upper is, well, prohibited now, but at the time wasn't even a regulated item. So that's easy to disassemble and just take it off of the military's books and sell it to the civilian market. Whereas a pistol, so if you're talking about 20,000 pistols, those would all need to have registration certificates, because I imagine because the military owns them, they don't. I'm sure there's some sort of military paperwork. So you would have to take that paperwork and then get the CFO to do something about it, which would be in and of itself an expense. So like it starts to become a bit of an arduous process. So yeah, they'll either just destroy them, or they may like mothball some of them for, emergencies use.
I still think comparing our government to the incompetent British government is very funny, because the Brits managed to replace their high powers with 25,000 Glocks in 2 years for 15 million Canadian dollars at the time.
Yeah, and it's absolutely doable, and doable in a fairly short time period if they actually just commit to it and do it. Like, just pick one unit and just start there and just keep working your way across. Like, it's not a hard thing to do.
It doesn't sound like it would be a hard thing.
It requires procurement to not be completely ridiculous, but our procurement system is completely ridiculous.
Yeah, and if they stopped spending money on airplanes that we're never getting, then maybe they'd even have the money to buy the pistols.
Even if they didn't have the money to buy the pistols, this is one of those things. It's like I don't like the idea of giving our soldiers pistols, because they're not very good as like a tool for a soldier to use. But if they're in a situation where they need a pistol, they really need a pistol that works. And the high powers do not meet the criteria for a pistol that really works.
Yeah, not anymore anyways. Maybe at one point they did, but not now.
There's so many failures. And I mean, you can look at the scores from things like NSCC and CAFSAC, and like it's possible to see how the military is using these firearms in competition, and they do not perform well.
Yeah.
What if they, the money that they're going to spend on the projected gun buyback, and use that to replace some of the handguns? I think that'd be a great idea.
Yeah,
I think that would be again.
I mean,
the whole problem is I think that the procurement system is really just broken, because it shouldn't. Yeah. It shouldn't take us 20 years. Well, I guess we're not 20 years yet. 10 years at this point. It shouldn't take us 10 years to replace however many 30,000 pistols that we need to replace.
Yeah.
Even if it was one for every reinforced member.
Yeah. Even at 70,000 pistols. Yeah. It should not take this long to do that.
Hi, Glock. I'd like 10,000 pistols a year for 10 years, please. Yes, I'm a government agency. Here's an enormous check. Because going back to what we talked about a minute ago, when they did the C6 replacement, the C6 modernization with Colt Canada, I forget what it was. We worked out the math. It was like $10,000 a unit, something in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
I mean, like, machine gun bigger than pistol, machine gun costs more than pistol, but also, like, hi, Glock, I'm the government of Canada. I'd like to buy 100,000 units over 10 years. Could we do that? Is that...
Yeah.
Or what if we, like, got some Glock factories here and hired some Canadians to start making them, too?
Oh, making guns in Canada? I don't know if we want to do that kind of thing. That's pretty dangerous. We'd have Canadian-made firearms?
Yeah, you definitely need an
I don't know. I'm
FDL.
just thinking crazy here. It would create jobs, and then the military would have better firearms.
I think that might have been one of the problems with one of the procurement programs. I think maybe the 2016 version, the firearms had to be domestically produced.
Yeah, good
So
luck with that.
whoever won it had to license it to Dimaco Colt Canada to be manufactured in their Kitchener facility. And again, like, nobody wants to do that because why would
Yeah.
Glock or SIG license their design to another manufacturer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
procurement
how
is
much
dumb.
was it when we? Yeah, but what was the procurement cost per rifle for the new sniper rifles we just got? I want to say this article was maybe a year ago. It was like crazy per rifle what we paid.
Yeah, it was like the C-13s.
Yeah.
I don't remember the model, nothing. I remember seeing
Right.
it and I started doing
They-
math.
they
and I was like,
were-
it was ridiculous.
AR-10s with like a DMR setup from Colt Canada, and they were overpriced, and what they paid for like extra rifles for parts and everything was just like astronomical.
I want to say
Maybe
they were
that's what I'm
like
thinking.
$15K.
Maybe it wasn't the
Was it 15K
C6
rifle?
replacement program, but yeah, I think you're right. I think it was the AR-10 pattern rifles that were
Yeah.
like $15,000 a piece. But that also included maintenance and service contracts for like,
Yeah.
I think it was like
Yeah.
a 10 or 15 year period on the rifle.
Yes, but
Yeah.
the thing is though, is like they do that, but like why did they obviously they need parts, but like maintenance and service, they have an armory full of armorers. That's their job. But they're
Yeah,
still
but you gotta
paying
have
for
like
that nonsense.
that factory level service. You can't have the
Yeah,
company armorer
It's-
doing
it's
it. You gotta
probably
send it
'cause
back to
they're-
the factory sometimes.
probably because they got those amazing but also stupid IUR or MMR rails where you need that proprietary wrench to get down in there to take the barrel nut off.
A strong possibility.
Yeah.
Shall we go to Alberta? Let's go to Alberta. This is in the CBC. Alberta willing to go to court to oppose handgun ban as feds weigh options for gun control. All right, peace out,
Alberta-
guys. I'm moving to Alberta.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Alberta's
Yeah,
starting
that's what I'm
to look
thinking
good
too.
again.
Well, Alberta's looked good for a while. I've been saying, like, I'm not a fan of Jason Kenney, but if we can get through another provincial election where they don't re-elect the NDP, like, Alberta looks
Yeah.
better and better every day. And I like
yeah.
this Casey Windu guy, whatever his name is, the justice minister for Alberta. I know his name's not actually Windu because he just reminds me of the guy from Star Wars. That's not really
Mace
his name.
Windu, Samuel Jackson.
Yes. Well, this guy's name is like Casey Madu. Maju. I don't know. I've
Sure.
not heard his name said. I
I'm
don't.
good
I
with-
read
I'm
the
good
news. I
with
don't
Windu.
listen to it.
Yeah.
So anyway, Casey Windu says that the Alberta government is willing to go to court to fight the federal government over the prohibition of handguns. And this is all like this. Prior to the election, the Liberal Party of Canada talked about allowing municipalities to enact handgun bans, which is 100% not how the Firearms Act works right now.
Well, it's not even how the division of powers works for provincial and federal government and the municipal.
Well, I'm glad you
So
mentioned that because
that's
that
why I think
was
they're
the
trying
election.
it this way. Yeah,
That was part of this election cycle was that
yeah.
the Justin
We-
Trudeau
yeah.
federal
We made a
Liberals-
promise last time that we realized doesn't work, so we're making a slightly different promise this time.
Right. So we're going to allow individual provinces to ban handguns. And Mace Windu is like, it's the one that
Fuck
says
you are.
bad motherfucker.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Say what
so-
again?
would they mandate every province to do something, or is it just like, hey, it's in your ballgame,
So
right?
the way that
Like,
I read the way that I read the program is they're working on setting aside I think it's $1 billion, a billion with a B. I think they're setting aside $1 billion to help provinces that want to ban handguns.
so him saying we'll go to court is kind of a little more than, like, they're not saying we're going to mandate, right? They're going to say we'll give you the option. If Alberta's just like take off aid, that's the end of it, or
Well, no,
is
so,
there more going to be
so-
more push from the federal government?
I think there's going to be a lot of push from the federal government because I think the division of
Yeah,
power.
but
thing's
not in
gonna-
a way that we want.
Well, it's no, definitely, and not with nearly enough lube.
Yeah.
But I think that the federal government is going to try to delegate the responsibility of this to the provinces because they can.
Yeah.
Because if you remove the federal, if you rewrite the way that the Firearms Act is written, you could do a division of power thing where you could give the provinces the ability to regulate firearms in their province the same way that we let provinces regulate healthcare within their own province. It's not a perfect analogy, but like same idea. That's like provinces can regulate things in their own province unless the federal government decides that they're going to regulate it nationally.
Yeah,
which is the argument
municipalities
Alberta
can only do it if the province allows them.
Right. It's like a trickle down kind of a thing. So the higher level of government doesn't do it. The next level, lower government has the option to say something that they can do about it. But then again, like if the higher level of government says like, F you guys, like the higher level of government sort of not automatically wins, but like jurisdictional division of power stuff happens. And generally like federal regulations trump provincial trumps municipal. Generally, I mean, I'm sure somebody's going to point out an exception. Somebody's yelling at their cars or driving on the 401 right now, telling me how I'm wrong. But the Alberta Justice
not
Minister.
In Quebec.
Well, not if he's driving on the 401.
In his car in Quebec, you'll end up with a fine.
No, that's only if you sing Happy Birthday in Montreal.
C'est français, là. Yeah.
Alouette, gentil alouette. The Alberta Justice Minister is saying that he'll take the feds to court over this, though, because the stance of the Alberta government is that these regulations should be handled federally because we don't want to create a patchwork of firearms regulations across the country, which I think is like 100% absolutely the right way to do this. Because look at the shit show that is America.
Yeah.
Keep looking at it.
Yeah.
Now just focus on the firearms part. Because like California does something weird, New Jersey does something weird, New York does something weird, Connecticut does something weird, Texas is like machine guns, y'all.
Yeah.
But see, that's the thing, though. It's like, wouldn't it be nice to have one province that we could be like, it was like Texas?
But it's not even that. So,
machine guns?
But it's not even that.
Because there's nowhere to go for us, though.
But like here, like you can legally own a non-restricted rifle and travel across the country with it, and it's legal everywhere you go. Whereas, like, for example, in Las Vegas, you are allowed to open carry, except in one part of Las Vegas. So, like, you have different things, not even just state to state, but inside the state. And then sometimes even within the same friggin' city, you'll have different laws. So where I'm doing it now, it's legal. And then I go 2 blocks over, it's not legal. And then I go over here and now I can have a machine gun and a suppressor and I don't even need a tax stamp because it's all made in Texas. Like, it's confusing and it sets people up to get arrested.
Did Texas pass that law? Texas said that because it's not interstate. Okay, it's not passed yet. Because I was getting like,
I think they've started.
Texas is not the most gun-friendly state, but it is like a pretty gun-friendly state, which is actually like it's one of those weird things. You think Texas is like a super-duper gun-friendly state, but like Texas only recently got constitutional concealed carry, and they really only got concealed carry like I think it was in the late 90s, because there was a period of time for like a long time in Texas where you were not allowed to carry a handgun concealed on your person.
Once they allowed people to open carry swords, then everything sort of fell into place for everything else.
God damn it, I need a sword.
But yeah, so
wasted all my time looking at axes earlier.
But I mean, this is the problem. Like, yes, it would be great if we had, like, if Alberta just basically, flipped the bird and said we're doing whatever we want. That'd be amazing. But the problem is that, like,
if Alberta did that and flipped the bird, then Alberta would be like, we're not doing transfer payments. We're gonna sell our oil the way that we see fit, and you can take your carbon tax and stick it.
Yeah, but
then you'd start making like a sovereign.
Enjoy the things, and then that could start becoming problematic because how many people are going to move there, and then there'd be too many people moving there, and then with too many people,
but then we'd have machine guns and keep those people out.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good argument, but it just becomes a new. It's enough of a nuisance traveling around Ontario trying to figure out hunting regulations that are fairly similar from like WMU to WMU. Imagine that your gun is legal where you live and legal where you're going to go use it, but not anywhere in between. And you have to go through those places to get there. So how do I do that? And that was the problem with the municipal thing, where it's like, well, if Toronto
Yes,
bans
having a
handguns,
patchwork of municipal laws is a recipe for disaster. And
I need to pass
not
through
that the
Toronto to
federal
get to my
system
club.
is not that the federal system for firearms is by any means good in this country, but it's consistently shitty.
Yes, it's
Episode title.
yeah. You're not going to get the weird, well, I didn't know problem because it's legal where I am. That's
Yeah, you can't play stupid. At least not here. That won't fly.
yeah.
Yeah. Unless you're the prime minister, then it
Yeah,
works.
yeah, no, but it's rules for him and then rules for everyone else. Oh yeah,
I do like this idea of Alberta being willing to put their lawyers where their political beliefs are. Because if there's any province that's going to do this, it's going to be a Western province. Because I mean, of all the times that we've tried to overthrow the government in this country, it's mostly been by natives from Western Canada. So, I mean, we may as well keep up with the trend.
Yeah. No, I mean,
this guy's a politician, right?
Mace Windu? Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's a politician.
Sits on the Jedi Council and everything.
Today he says he would go to court against the federal government. Tomorrow, what's he going to say?
Well, I mean, and look at O'Toole,
you know
right?
What, though? This is not the first time that Casey Maydew has ended up on the show. We've talked about this guy before, and I am consistently impressed by his stance. As long as he's been the justice minister in Alberta, which has not been for very long, because he's only been... Kenny's government's been in power for 3 years now since they kicked that witch. I mean, Notley out.
Oh, you said it right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't know.
We can agree that he's a politician, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. And
well, he seems to be consistent. He seems to be more consistent than the average politician.
And he's willing to work in the interest of the, I'm going to say, average Albertan. Because, on the whole, Albertans don't have the most guns per capita of provinces in Canada, but, I think they were close third.
Yeah.
Who's got the most?
I believe by per capita, and somebody can fact check me on this, I believe by per capita, it's Ontario, Quebec, and then Alberta.
It's just probably because of the population, I guess.
Well, no, that's because that's not how per capita works, because it's per 100,000 people.
But I imagine you'd have a lot of people that own them here, one, because the shooting sports is a big thing around here, but also probably people for work that have to own them.
I would not be terribly surprised by that.
While there are armed guards in Alberta, I imagine there's a hell of a lot more of them in these centers of commerce.
I expect that is the case.
Yeah. Do they have to get their own duty piece?
It depends on who you work for and what you work for and everything else as opposed to what it is and how it all. But I imagine they track it all because you would need to have them registered to a business and everything else. So
yeah, but so would that fall under firearms per capita if it's owned by the business and it stays at your head office type thing?
Legally registered to an entity, so I imagine it would count without having to go and look. I would, and again, somebody from Alberta that works for Garda, send an email and tell us how we're wrong about how guns work in your province for your method of employment.
Yeah, and I mean, I could be mistaken, but I imagine those people, their ATC is for that particular model, and they would need to have papers that register that firearm to them, or at least allow them to temporarily use that particular one.
There is one other piece with this that I want to touch on is the homicide rates in Alberta, because Edmonton and Calgary are actually really violent places. And they've had a lot of firearms-related homicides in the last couple of years. 2020 stats, for example, Edmonton and Calgary, respectively, 47 and 39 total homicides by all means. So, I mean, we're getting close to Toronto numbers.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's that compared to, Montreal, Toronto?
I believe Toronto last year got close to triple digits, total homicides, all causes. Or that might be That might be firearm specific homicides in Toronto
Yeah,
last
because
year was
I
like
was
triple
thinking like
digits.
40 sounds like a low number for Toronto.
Yeah, but I think it was firearms homicides in Toronto last year was like in the 80s or 90s. So not
I mean,
not
you're
at all
still 50%,
47
but with
in Edmonton, for example. But I mean, like Edmonton's also 600,000 people versus the
Yeah.
1 point something million in Toronto.
Yeah.
Again,
Well,
like
like
somebody will
most
have to
cities
fact check my
nowadays,
numbers,
they
but
have like the fentanyl
oh,
and all
the
the
drugs
opioid
and gangs and
stuff.
criminals and all of the other stuff. And
oh yeah,
I imagine that in the vast majority of cases in Edmonton, Calgary, or Toronto, Montreal, any place like that, the majority of the firearms involved homicides are not going to be legal firearms owners suddenly deciding to kill themselves and everyone around them. It's not going to be like massive onset of sudden
Yeah.
domestic violence where some irate spouse gets a gun out and shoots up his family. It's going to be gangsters dealing fentanyl or methamphetamines or opioids or some other street drug that are going around with unregistered illegal handguns that were probably smuggled into this country, that are probably prohibited by definition to begin with, that
Yeah.
changing these laws doesn't change, which even the
I
new
would
mayor of
even-
Calgary was on board with.
I would even hazard to guess that not just in the cities, but even like in rural areas, that the vast majority of homicides with a firearm are still gang related.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
you got to make your meth somewhere.
Yeah.
Doing it downtown's a pretty like terrible
Yes,
choice. I
pretty-
mean,
yeah.
like, tactically.
Yeah.
Well, just because you're in a rural area doesn't mean you're excluded from gang
No.
violence and criminal activity.
No, certainly not.
No.
Certainly not.
That's where those people
just-
live to get away with doing the meth making because it
I'm
smells.
just saying, like, making meth in downtown Calgary is probably like a poor
Yeah.
tactical choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where would you do it, Andrew? If
If I was going to make meth,
Whoa, OPSEC, bro. OPSEC. Come on.
well, like hypothetically, if I was going to elicit, if I was going to
this
manufacture
show is
something,
all entertainment purposes too, right? Entertainment. This is all entertainment.
no, and like this has not been reviewed by my lawyer, and nothing the panel discusses is like to be taken as legal advice or anything like that. But like
Or factual.
hypothetically, if I was
If
going
we
to
were,
Yeah.
manufacture an illicit product, I would go to like super duper fucking northern Ontario, like past the Sioux,
Yeah.
where there's nobody for like 1,000 hectares around me.
Yeah.
get a nice big old chunk of land.
Like, where's Moosonee? That sounds pretty deserted.
Yeah.
Like, not the Tim Hortons in Moosonee where the flashing red stop sign light is. I mean, like, in
Yeah.
like the district of Moosonee. Like,
Yeah.
like
You don't even
way
need
up
to go
that logging
far.
road.
Like there's
Yeah.
some pretty boony places even out by the French River and all that.
Well, but that's what I mean. Like, if I was going to manufacture something
Oh, man,
illicit, I would go to one of those places where there's like, all right, I've got 10,000 hectares around me, and it's full of like wildlife and no
Could you-
other people.
I just had an amazing idea. I'm sure you all watched the Canadian Heritage Moments thing and had the log drivers waltz,
Of
that
course.
cartoon.
Yeah.
Could you imagine that? Like, yeah, we set
The
up somewhere
song?
along the river. Yeah, and that's how we smuggle illicit goods, is riding the
Using
logs. Yeah, down the French River or
mean-
something like that. That'd be like the most
Rolling
Canadian.
down
Yeah.
and down Whitewater.
That'd be the
That's
most
where the
Canadian
submarine
smuggling
gets their
thing
meth.
ever. Guys in flannel jeans and those spike shoes and one of those hooks, just like riding logs down, sending illicit drugs and illegally manufactured firearms to one another that way. That'd be
Maybe
amazing.
that should be the show title, Meth Loggers.
And that might be too realistic. Yeah.
I'm gonna pitch that to Discovery Channel when they run out of Ice Road Trucker series. We're gonna talk about meth road loggers.
Yeah.
You heard it here, folks. It'll be on TV soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, things that won't be on TV. I'm having a hard time finding a mainstream news source for the next one. So this is off the Gun Blog. gunblog.ca. Court orders all info on RCMP algorithms for attacking gun owners, which is a little bit of a clickbaity headline, but like you get the gist of it. So this is going back to the May 2020 Ordering Council where they prohibited all the fun guns.
Well, the fun ones,
and a whole lot of
they allowed
not
us to
fun
keep.
guns too.
Yeah.
Well, we're still. I have just as many ARs today as I had in April of 2020, but I've not been able to take them anywhere or use them legally for any lawful purposes. But I have just as many.
Now, if you were to use them illegally, where would you go to use them?
Again, really far away. Only guy in 10,000 acres where there's no one around.
Yeah. And then it's just some plausible deniability that I didn't use this and I used one of the other guns that I'm legally allowed to operate on my property in the same caliber.
Yeah.
Right.
But
none of this is legal advice.
No, I'm not encouraging people to break the law. I'm just saying hypothetically, if I were going to look for someone who was breaking the law, the place where I would go and look is away from other people, because breaking the law in, like, I don't know, Yonge and what's downtown Toronto, like Yonge and what's
Yonge and Dundas.
Dundas, thank you, Yonge and Dundas. That would be a terrible place to do it, even though that's where they do the pot rally.
Mm-hmm. Or actually, I don't even know if it's still called Dundas because I think that's racist now.
Oh,
good, we're definitely calling it Dundas then.
No, we can't do that.
I think actually we're talking about where we could get money to replace the guns. They spent, I don't know how much money replacing the signs in all of Toronto that said Dundas, because apparently the gentleman with the name Dundas that was here and helped settle the city was a racist. I don't know. Anyways, that's getting off topic.
I don't even know what to do with that. Yeah, I'm gonna need a news article, or at least an Ian Runkle video, which is actually if you want the Runkle pill, and probably go follow Ian on YouTube. He has his own YouTube channel.
You can use a couple of dollars so you can afford a haircut.
Mr. Hairdo.
That's the guy. Yeah. So Runkle of the Bailey on YouTube. Ian Runkle. He's a firearms lawyer. I think he's out west, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. I like making
Somewhere
fun of
where
his
they don't
hair,
have
but
barbers.
Ian, if you're watching this, I do like you.
No, I think his YouTube videos are very informative, and he has he's in the show twice tonight in my notes on this.
Yeah, we like you.
He does a great job of explaining the algorithm. He does a great job of explaining the algorithm piece that the gun blog wrote about, and the gun blog actually has like primary source documents from the court on this. I particularly like the National Litigation Council's response to this. So the Attorney General Council, the Attorney General Canada Council response, the last paragraph I think is my favorite paragraph. Any potential errors in the letters as a result of the registrar or the algorithm remain hypothetical in these proceedings. None of the applicants have claimed error in the guns listed in their specific July 20 letter. As a general rule, courts refrain from hearing hypothetical matters that are not grounded in the facts before them. So, the closing lines of the government's response to the court telling them that they need to provide, the court telling the government they need to provide the algorithm, is that everybody that's bringing this suit forward is doing it on a hypothetical basis. This is the government's argument. This is...
What?
There's a level of government bureaucracy here that I didn't even know could exist.
So what you're saying is they're governmenting at a supreme government level?
I didn't know you could government this hard. The government's argument is that because no one is arguing about an error in their paperwork, that the arguments they're making are hypothetical, and the court should not be dealing with a hypothetical matter.
Oh my God. I think really what their plan is just to talk so much shit that you can't wrap your head around it, that you just want to walk away from the situation.
I mean, they are politicians.
A strong possibility. But I mean, like earlier on the first couple of paragraphs of the government's response to the order, And the government is likely going to try to have this removed, or they're going to challenge it or appeal it or do something so they don't have to provide the algorithm. But part of their argument for not providing the algorithm, like the actual like substantive part of their argument, not the we're not doing this because the court shouldn't be looking at this because it's hypothetical, which it's not, but like that's just an entertaining argument.
Yeah. It actually exists, but yet it's still hypothetical.
Well, no. So the Crown Attorney, the counsel for the Attorney General of Canada, their argument is that because no one is arguing against the accuracy or erroneous content of the letter, that it's hypothetical. Everyone agrees that they got letters saying that their guns got banned. No one is arguing that part. We want to know how those guns got selected to be banned. That's what we're trying to establish here.
Yeah.
I know you know. It's mostly in case I've done a bad job explaining it for the listeners, or the Crown Attorney, who I will have to explain this to in front of a judge someday. Make sure that I am doing a decent job of trying to explain this while I've been drinking.
We tried to do this peacefully and nicely.
Yes.
The Attorney General of Canada objects to the disclosure of information requested on the basis that the information is in cabinet confidence and or covered by a public interest immunity. The Attorney General of Canada invokes this privilege to protect national security, which would be severely harmed upon the disclosure of this information, and to protect the public by safeguarding the personal information of millions of gun owners and other individuals included in this request.
So this is similar to the results of the injunction, where they're like, okay, well, you banned a bunch of stuff and we need to see some papers. So you're going to have to show them to the judge. No. Showing you why we decided to ban guns would be so dangerous to public safety that we can't even tell you why we banned it.
It is a very similar argument to that. And part of this, again, I think is disingenuous because, I mean, to Brian's point,
the government,
they're saying a lot of things and hoping some of it sticks.
Yeah. Or they just confuse people and they walk away because they're like, I don't know what they're saying.
No one at the court proceedings, the judge or the what would it be if they're not the Crown Attorney? The plaintiffs, I suppose. No one is asking for the information of millions of gun owners included in the request. We want to know what the algorithm is that the computer used to generate the letters. We're not asking for a list of all the people the letters were sent to. We want to know how the list was generated. What was the algorithm that was used to generate the list? Because, to simplify, computer algorithms are a mathematical equation to provide a set of outputs. So you give it a set of inputs, you apply a formula to it, and you get a result.
Yeah.
In this case, we want to know, how did we get the result? What was the formula? We're not asking for the list of millions of gun owners.
But how did you generate the list?
We want to know how the list was generated.
Yeah. So,
show us some logic about how the list was generated. To say that is privileged information, and also that it's so in one paragraph they argue that it's privileged information, it's done in cabinet confidence, and it's covered by public interest immunity. It's also privileged to protect national security. It's also to protect the information of private firearms owners. And in the next paragraph, they say that it's the proprietary software of the Canadian Firearms Program.
But this is the thing so we're not asking for the names of the people on the list. We already know the guns that are on the list. All we want to know is, how did you pick those guns?
That's what we want. So
Which makes it even more ridiculous, because it's like, if it was like we were not supposed to know what guns are about to be banned or something. Well, but I could see if they're like, there's a bunch of gun bans coming, but we're not telling you what, so that you don't go and buy them. I would see them not releasing that algorithm, but this is shit that's already been banned, that we know has been banned, and they've sent letters to everyone. Yeah.
Well, and the argument is based on that the registrar of firearms sent you this not nullification letter saying that your shit is now prohibited. Firearms that you had previously lawfully owned, that you continue to own, are now prohibited. This, like, not nullification letter.
Yeah.
So, how did the not nullification letters get generated? Because the Canadian Firearms Program is not the registrar of firearms.
Yeah.
Your province's CFO is the registrar of firearms. So how did the CFP tell your local registrar, your local CFO, to make these letters, to send them to people? What is the logic with how the list was made? It is not particularly complicated. It should not be confidential information.
Yeah. I mean,
There's nothing.
It should be pretty obvious for them to go, well, anyone that had an AR that was registered or any of these other things that was registered to their name, we sent them a letter. Show me the simple.
Send me the sequel statement.
Yeah.
Send me the sequel statement.
Yeah.
But we're also trying to apply logic.
Yeah,
We're
there's
trying
only
to apply
like,
logic to anything government has put
but
their fucking
finger in.
there's only like
It's fair.
6 or 7 things on that list that like would actually be able to search for that would like, I mean, there's a bunch of non-restricted stuff, but like, so the short barreled 858s and VZ58s, ARs, the MPX, a couple of the other things that might be short barreled, like that's it. Like that's it. Like there's not a whole lot to search for. Yeah.
Show us that the work was done and show us how the CFP and the Registrar of Firearms worked together to send the not nullification letters.
Yeah. There was some cooperation between departments there. Yeah. There had to have been.
Yeah.
And I think it's entirely reasonable that we should be given that information. Like the court should be shown how this was arrived at.
Yeah. Show me the letter that told you to search for these terms and send these people letters, not who you sent it to. We already know what got banned. We already know all the people that they went to. Just tell me, just show me the letter. Yeah.
I don't think we're going to get there. I think, and I agree with Ian's assessment of this. I think that the Crown, the Attorney General of Canada, is going to appeal this. Well, I think they're going to appeal this, and I think it's going to have to go probably to a higher level of court to get dealt with, because I think that they're not going to want to give this information up because, frankly, and maybe my tinfoil hat's on a little too tight, I don't think there's an algorithm. I don't think there was a whole lot of planning or logic that was done to this. I think they came up with a list, Polysuivant or Ecole Polytechnique. Yeah, it's Polysuivant, right?
Yeah.
Heidi Rathen's group. I think they just went through the catalog from last year's SHOT Show or whatever it was, whatever firearms distributor catalog it was, and if it was black and scary looking, they highlighted it, and they gave it to the government, and the government said, cool, those are banned now.
Yeah, that or they took half of them and then said, we can't do them all at once. We'll do these ones on the next go around.
Yeah, however they arrived at that list.
Yeah, what are your top 5? Give me your top 5, yeah.
Like they got the list and they sent it out, and the Registrar of Firearms sent the not nullification letters, and apparently everybody's got sent on the same day. So like, this was not being done one at a time by some clerk in an office.
That's a massive coordinated effort. Yeah, there's planning that needs to be done for that to happen.
And months, because those letters came. The ordering council was the 1st of May, and people all got their letters dated July the 20th. So, okay, maybe it took a while for the printer to do its thing and like fold the envelopes and like write the address on it and right. But like everybody got a letter the same day. I have a hard time buying that the government is that type of efficient.
It's amazing how when they're trying to bend you over with no lube, they can be very efficient. But when it comes to something that's like in your benefit, it's like, ooh, yeah.
Oh yeah, you want to know how we did this? No, we're actually going to like claim state secrets on this, and we're not going to tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is a public safety thing.
COVID.
Yeah, so You're gonna have to
Supply
do
chain.
your own taxes, and when you file them, if you owe us money, you're gonna have to pay us on the same day. Oh, but if we owe you money, yeah, that might take a couple weeks.
Wow.
Checks in the mail.
When you get your
Not bad.
taxed money back, maybe invest in a 3D printer.
Yeah.
Definitely don't make guns with it.
No,
Unless
Yeah,
you have a
don't do
firearms
that.
business license.
but also maybe don't buy a 3D printer if you don't have an FBL already, because you
Because
could
then you
make
could
guns
be
with it.
tempted to make a gun.
Yeah.
You might be a criminal that hasn't committed a crime yet.
Oh, you thought crime. The thought crime, you've already committed it, because even us
I've seen
posing
that
that
movie.
means you've thought about it. Yeah.
We'll get to
Minority
the RCMP
Report.
commissioner in a moment. We'll get to her in a moment. We'll see
Tom
how,
Cruise.
see how much we argue about this one. So again, Ian Runkle, good video on this. Global news, and I think this came from, I want to say it was originally in like the Canadian press, maybe. It came from somewhere. Global News just had like the least obnoxious ad banners when I was looking for a source on this.
So they only had a dozen.
So this is from Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan man facing 8 charges as RCMP seized a number of firearms, including 2 that were 3D printed. Released from November 21st. Home in Weyburn, Saskatchewan. They seized firearms. They gave him a bunch of counts. I don't really actually care about what this guy did, because he's probably... I'm not saying he was 100% breaking the law, but like he was probably not following all the rules. And a lot of the firearms laws are dumb.
Yes.
And vague.
Confusing.
Also shouldn't break them on purpose, unless you have a lot of money to bankroll a really good lawyer. Because if you want to
There's
like
no
legally
gray
test some of
area.
these things, like some of these things should be tested. But I also don't have like $100,000+ to like test some of these
Yeah.
theories.
But if you do
Yeah.
feel like testing them, we can
For the
put you in
time.
touch with some great firearms lawyers.
I know a guy or two.
Yeah.
Ian Runkle.
Yes.
Wow, he could be a great firearms
tell him
lawyer.
we
He's
sent
one
you.
haircut away
The show
from
sent you.
Yeah.
one haircut away from being a great lawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Nice
suspect
hair,
that the guy in Saskatchewan had a PAL and tried to import something that the CBSA flagged as a prohibited device or something he wasn't allowed to acquire, and that resulted
Which could have
in-
been a pocket knife.
I mean, a strong possibility, but it wouldn't be pocket. It'd be one of those very dangerous spring-loaded assisted opening gravity
Yeah.
knife things.
Yeah.
You know, like my Milwaukee Fastback.
Yeah.
Pocket knife that I bought at Home Depot for $12 because I can 100% open those with one hand.
Yeah. I still have one that has a button.
Allegedly.
Well, I mean, if I had one and I was going to try to, I could definitely do it with
Yeah.
one hand. But I would also do it in like Northern Ontario on my own 10,000 acre plot with no one around but me and nature.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd be sitting there all day clipping it.
That's where I
Yeah.
keep all my illegal blades,
Yeah.
I mean,
my box openers.
Yeah.
well, better than Weyburn, Saskatchewan, because this guy lived on like
Yeah.
4th
There is a
Street or
lot
something. And
of
the RCMP immediately
packages that
found
needs to
him.
be opened and drywall that needs to be cut. That's
He's like, this is where I keep my legal stash.
This guy in Saskatchewan aside, I think this guy broke some laws. I think he probably had a firearms license and he was probably trying to import things that were not allowed, but I think he also had a 3D printer and he was playing with his 3D printer and trying to make some firearms.
Nice.
And I think that's where we want to spend some time on this, and we'll see how far down the rabbit hole we go. Up until this week, I was under the impression that I could make guns at home as long as I had the requisite firearms license to own those guns.
and I was under that same impression that so if I wanted to manufacture a firearm for personal use, as long as I had the correct licensing, I was allowed to do so. And if it's a restricted one, within 30 days of the completion, I had to register it. Those were the only, I can't sell it to anyone, but I could make it and own it and possess it and use it legally as long as I followed those rules.
And that was my impression as well. And I know somebody that had, and maybe this is a bad example now because 50 BMG is a banned caliber in this country because the Ordering Council is fake and gay.
We can use the Wayback Machine though and go back in time to when it was allowed.
So when it was allowed, I know a guy that used to make single shot 50 BMGs in his garage. There was there was a group of them, and that was what they did for fun because they were machinists and techs, and that was what they did, right? So I knew a number of people who had home built 50 BMG single shot rifles.
Are you serious? And they were shooting these things off?
Yes.
Did anybody see what happened to the Kentucky ballistics guy? He had a single shot.
It's
50.
fine as long as you don't have like a threaded end cap on the end. And if you do, make sure it has a lot more threads.
I think
the trick is to still make it a working firearm.
Yeah.
So like this is really my only experience with home built firearms. Is I know some guys that had built their own 50s like in their garage,
and they were shooting them off. You better be fucking confident with your machining abilities.
I mean, hey, if you're a professional like machinist and you want to like build a thing as a hobby, I mean that strikes me as no more dangerous than like building a thing to bolt onto your truck.
Fucking, that's a lot. That's a lot of energy.
No,
I mean, go big or go home.
It's fine.
I don't know.
I'd say like, but this is the thing though, like
so smaller.
Legally, there's no question. Like obviously, like anything, but it's no different than like reloading. Like, don't be an idiot. Know what you're doing because it could be dangerous.
Right.
But again,
and so I don't have a lot of
dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery, right?
I mean, not a terrible life motto if you had to pick something and get tattooed. Yeah. That's my only experience with home built firearms is like, I know some guys that had built their own 50s, but like my understanding up until this week, based on this article from Saskatchewan, was that if you wanted to make your own non-restricted firearm for your own use, not for commercial, not to make it and sell it or not to, but if you were somebody who was competent in a machine shop or had a lot of free time and hand tools, and you wanted to make yourself a non-restricted rifle that met all the technical characteristics of a non-restricted rifle, it was the appropriate length and it was the appropriate, it was a bolt action or single shot or some sort of, it didn't meet any of the criteria to be restricted or prohibited, right? So it was a firearm, it was non-restricted. My understanding was if you built it in your garage, if you built it yourself, you could do as much as you wanted. You could build as many of those as you wanted. And up until the end of the long gun registry, you had to register those. When the long gun registry went away, you could just make them.
Yeah.
For personal, like recreational use, right?
Yeah. You can't, like, you couldn't give them away or sell them or whatever. If you did that, you'd need an FBL, and then you'd have to get an FRT number for them to be able to transfer them and all of those things. But like, yeah, sure. I want to go planking with them, or I want to go hunting with it, or compete, or whatever it is that you like to do legally with your firearms, you could do that.
And my understanding with the restricted aspect of this was, again, as long as you had a restricted license and you made a firearm that met the criteria to be restricted, and you registered it with the CFO, and you did all of the paperwork things that you needed to do with that, my understanding was you could make your own restricted. So if you wanted to machine a pistol, or if you wanted to like get an 80% AR lower and finish it and serialize it and register it with the government, my understanding was it was perfectly legal to do that.
Or you could get a 0% AR lower and
build it out of a block
entirely from scratch yourself. And that, again, completely legal.
And the RCMP appears to have now reinterpreted that based on this 3D printer stuff that, and 100%, like, this law is not well written. This section of the Firearms Act is very, very bad. Like, not that any of the Firearms Act is good, but like this particular section is especially badly written. It seems that the RCMP has now changed their interpretation of this section of the Firearms Act. That if you're going to make a firearm, you need a firearms business license.
I don't know.
Well, and I don't see how you can. I don't see how the RCMP, aside from being the federal police force, I don't see how they can make an argument that the Firearms Act has not changed. I don't know how they can, aside from the fact that they're the authority in arresting you. I don't see how they can like decide to reinterpret this, and I
Yeah.
don't see how it can be based on 3D printer
Wow.
go burr.
Yeah. So like
It's like-
if they're gonna get all butthurt about 3D printers, which absolutely like it lowers the barrier to entry for guys that want to do this because you could 3D print a Glock frame quite easily, and go from there versus like if that's the thing. So then are we gonna go like to guys that have a CNC machine and go, yeah, you also need an FBL because you may commit a thought crime and consider printing or milling a firearm?
I have some hand tools and some Schedule 40 pipe in my garage, so I might consider building a Sten gun someday.
I have seen people that have made working AR lowers out of wood. So do you have a chisel and a mallet and a block of wood in your garage? Like,
Yeah.
Really?
or like,
All
I can't
depends.
imagine how much it
G-
would take to. Could you imagine the cost of building an AR-15 lower out of a 2x4 these days?
yeah,
It'd be an
it's
expensive
cheap-
firearm.
cheaper to make it out of aluminum. Because you could just get cans and melt them down. And I've also seen someone do that on the YouTubes. The coolest one I saw though was the guy that took like empty brass, melted the brass down into a block, and then made an AR out of melted down like used brass.
Oh, that's pretty dope.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
you don't need to gold plate it when it's already like gold. But yeah, it just starts to get ridiculous because like, I mean, we were talking in the chat, like you could go to Home Depot and yeah, just buy some pipe, and like a slam fire shotgun is like 2 pieces of pipe that fit together, an end cap, a nail, and then like you need to be at least able to weld 2 pieces together, and it doesn't need to look nice because you need to weld.
need
Not
to
that
weld, you
I
could
maybe I
probably
shouldn't tell people
braze.
how to manufacture that, but you could probably even just like super glue it or like JB weld it into place, and it would.
I bet JB
work.
Weld would work. I'm sure brazing would work.
And it would fire once, right? Like
Yeah.
so.
And you just
Anyone
need
that
one.
buys a combination of those things, do they need an FBL now?
Well, I think this is where we get into this. Like, this is a dumb argument because 3D printer go burr, and like,
So it's not the fact that you need a license to do any of that. It's the point of like if I combined part A, B, and C, which is all legal for me to own, I combine A, B, and C together, and I make the G for big gun, right? Then it becomes illegal, right? So it's
I'm
not so
still
much
not convinced, and this is one of those things that like somebody would have to test it. I am not convinced in, and I am so far from a lawyer. I am so very far from a lawyer. But in my reading of the Firearms Act, I don't see that there's anything there that prevents you from building your own firearms. I think that there's a provision, poorly written, exceptionally poorly written, in the Firearms Act to say that I can, as a PAL holder, as a firearms licensee, I can
Yeah.
make my own firearm.
Well,
Yeah, I think
so,
as soon as you start
and I'm
trying
not
to sell
saying
it
they're
and make
right.
a profit, and
yeah,
no,
But
and
that's-
I
and
get
I'm not
that.
saying any
I
of
get
that's
that.
right.
yeah. But I mean, that's the same thing in that, like, I can legally sell a gun to you, and I don't need an FBL for that because I'm not a firearms business.
But you also didn't manufacture it.
No, but that's the
Right.
difference. So,
Good-
like,
good.
I
Well,
didn't
the specific-
manufacture it for sale,
No, but
but there's a bunch of things that we can do with guns that we
I
don't need
wonder-
an FBL for.
At what point do
Yeah,
you
yeah,
have
but
to sell
the-
enough guns or make enough profit that you should be a firearms business license? Because this is a thing there. This
Well,
was
and I
floated,
guess-
I think, the 2
yeah.
election cycles ago.
If you sell
if
more
you-
than 4 guns a year or something ridiculous,
Yeah, then you're a
like
gun
that.
dealer. Yeah, you're a gun
Right.
business, and it's like I don't agree with that
Because-
either because that's not your.
specific.
Although
No,
I
you
would
don't have to say
gladly
anything, but
sell you 4 guns, 5 guns a year to get an FBL, if that means that I can get a full FBL, which means that I can now own full auto and suppressor because I am a
Prohibited
firearms
devices.
business.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna know.
no.
But I mean, it's
but
but that's-
specifically in this article, it says if you want to manufacture firearms, it's that, not sell a firearm. if you want to manufacture.
Yeah, no, I know.
Right?
I'm
It has
just,
not. It doesn't
Well,
say anything. But
that line in the article is the whole
Yeah.
impetus of why
I
I'm
mean-
confused about this
Yeah.
conversation, because up until a week ago,
Yeah.
I was under the impression that you could build as many firearms as you wanted from scratch in your house as long as you had the appropriate PAL
So-
or RPAL,
that license
be in
to
possession
cover.
of that.
and for as long as I knew, like that's what it was, and I'm fairly certain that that's even the way that it was explained to me by my pal instructor back in the day. And there are people that will sell you, I mean, and I guess so. What about things that are firearms but aren't considered firearms, like a flintlock musket? So you can go and buy kits where the flintlock musket is not assembled, and you have to assemble it yourself, and you don't need a PAL in order to buy a fully assembled flintlock musket, but it's still a firearm. But so technically you're still manufacturing a firearm by assembling all of those pieces.
Again,
Is
I
that
think
an
that's
FBL?
covered by your
No,
license. And
but you're
the
but you're
Firearms
not
Act is broken.
manufacturing.
Yeah.
I don't know. At what
Right,
point
put-
is it? At what point does it change
Putting
from
it together. You're
manufacturing
not
to assembly?
manufacturing.
You
I
are
don't know.
though.
I don't know where that demarcation
Did you
is.
make anything?
Yes.
It's exactly like
Yeah,
if you
Okay,
didn't
so
make
so
any of it, you're not a manufacturer.
okay, so if I
Right.
go
If you
to-
didn't, so this person, right, put whatever in there, right? It wouldn't be any different. You guys have all built your AR-15s, right? You purchased parts and you put them together. So yes, you
Right.
built the gun.
but the
But the
problem with
second
that
it
is
becomes a manufacturer is if you had an 80% receiver and you made it into 100%, then you partially manufactured that. But if you didn't manufacture anything and you followed the IKEA instructions, you're not a manufacturer.
Sure you are.
Well, no, you're just the builder, right? You're an
I think-
assembler.
and
You didn't
maybe this is-
manufacture anything.
Maybe this is a particular, because the AR-15 is a thing that Gavin and I will both get triggered about. Because the lower receiver, the serialized component, whether it's a working firearm or not, according to the government, is a firearm. So maybe
Yeah.
we're being like needlessly nitpicky in that particular case.
but language is important.
Well, and this is
Yeah, but
I
that's
think
what
that
I'm
this
saying,
is a-
right?
I
Like
think
language
this is
is
a flawed
important at this point. So
interpretation
if
of
you
the
didn't
Firearm Act.
manufacture it,
Okay, so
if you didn't
if I wanted
manufacture
to-
anything of it,
if I wanted to manufacture flintlock musket parts, not fully completed flintlock muskets,
I
but
want to make
flintlock
the actual lock.
yeah, and then I don't assemble it, and then I sold those to you. Who needs an FBL?
I don't know that anyway,
I don't
because
know.
flintlocks is
But
like another one
technically
of
you
those like
don't
sponge
need-
edge cases.
But it's still a
Yeah.
firearm.
yes, but you don't need a license to purchase one. So why would you need a license?
I think this might be
you know,
like another one of those
But
fun, weird
I
edge
didn't,
cases.
but that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like it's that. So
Yeah.
okay, so we've established then that like everyone more or less agrees that in order to do that, because I don't need a license, even though it's a firearm, I could legally manufacture my own flintlock musket from scratch.
Most
Like I could
likely.
take the wood and like do all of it myself.
Yeah.
Totally okay. I could
Okay.
make the pieces, but now to go to like a more modern
maybe,
firearm.
maybe a simpler, well, and this is, I'm glad we're saying modern, because maybe this is a simpler thing. If you're one of my machinist friends who wants to build their
Yeah.
own single shot rifle, and let's say it was chambered in something that was like not on the naughty list, like a 308.
Yeah.
If I wanted to make a single shot 308 in my garage, is there anything stopping me from buying the material and spending the machine time or the hand tool time, as the case may be, to build myself a single shot 308? It's 30 inches long, overall length, whatever it's well above the minimum. It holds one cartridge. It is definitely not semi or fully automatic, because it holds one cartridge and has like
no magazine,
um,
nothing. Yeah.
Right. So it just is, it's a big tube and a little tube on a bipod. Have I manufactured myself a rifle? I feel like, I mean, if it's rifled, then yes. If it's
You've
not, then I
assembled
suppose
one.
I've made myself a musket of some
Also,
sort.
like a slam fire shotgun. I haven't manufactured
Which again, I think
anything.
I think
I've
a slam fire
assembled it.
shotgun is again one of those good examples, because if you take
Yeah.
if you take the appropriate pieces of pipe,
that
Schedule
already
40
exists.
pipe,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct diameter, inner and outer. Shotgun shell goes in. Need something to act as a firing pin. Smash the two tubes together. Ignite the shotgun shell. I can make a functional shotgun out of like 4 pieces.
Yeah.
5 pieces.
Well,
Have
if you
I
wanna
manufactured a
handle
shotgun?
4 if you don't want to handle more
Well, that's
than
why
that
I
if you
added
do. Yeah.
one, because like I would like a stock on mine. But
Yeah.
have I manufactured a shotgun? I think yes, because it's a firearm. It discharges a
But-
projectile, so it's a firearm.
But you haven't manufactured anything. You've
I
assembled
feel like I
things in a
have.
The only
this
thing
is
you've
I
had
don't
to
know
do
what-
is weld on the firing pin. That's
well,
it.
and this is what I was saying a minute ago. I don't know where the demarcation point is where it changes
Yeah.
from assembly to manufacture, but I feel like if I take component items, if I take material and assemble it into a functional device, I have manufactured that device. And maybe at some point I've only assembled the device.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, what?
But I think if I was going to make a
manufacturing and what's assembly
let's
and what's
stick on shotguns, because this is a pretty straightforward. So if I go get my 2 pieces of pipe of different diameters and something to act as my firing pin and something to hold it all together, some sort of a stock assembly, and I have assembled and or manufactured a shotgun, and it is 30 inches long or whatever. It's it's a goose gun. It's ungodly long. It's 4.5 feet long. It's definitely non-restricted single shot 12 gauge shotgun.
It is definitely
Firearm.
under the 20 millimeter bore diameter.
Right. Oh, I forgot about that little caveat, but yes.
Yeah, but if you're using pipe, it's dead straight and there's no choke. It's just,
well, ignoring that weird little technicality for a moment,
It's a
because the
20
Rotary Council
gauge.
is dumb.
It's a 20 gauge slam fire shotgun.
So I've made a 410 gauge shotgun.
It's an ungodly long rabbit gun.
Now, if I manufacture it such that my barrel is only 8 inches long, we can reasonably agree it's a restricted firearm based on its
That's a
overall
prohibited.
barrel length. Is it
Shouldn't it
prohibited?
even be prohibited?
No, because it's
No,
if it's-
I think
if it's-
what's
be
the minimum
restricted.
length on a shotgun?
But it would
Restricted shotgun.
Yeah, it wouldn't matter because the restricted barrel length just needs to be larger than 406 millimeters.
400. Well, that's what I say. So if it was like 8 inches long, an 8-inch long barrel,
Yeah,
slam fire shotgun, it's the same as my enormous homemade goose gun, which we all
Yeah.
agreed a minute ago was definitely a non-restricted firearm.
yeah.
Now
It
I've
was under the
manufactured
20,
myself
yeah.
a
Yeah.
restricted
It's-
homemade single shot
Yeah.
firearm based on its length, based on the technical characteristics.
Yeah.
I would need to call the Canadian Firearms Program, and I would need to tell them that I am making myself for personal use slam fire 8-inch shotguns, because that would be entertaining for me. I would actually kind of,
In 410.
yeah, in 410. So there's no argument about bore diameters.
Yeah.
I feel like I have not violated the Firearms
No.
Act. The Firearms Act is poorly written, and I'm sure they would still want to take me to court, and they don't
Yeah.
want me to make my own. They don't want you to know this, but the ducks at the park are free. You can take all the ducks you want. I have 20 ducks. The elites don't want you to know about that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Ducks are free.
You could totally do that. Like, and you would have 30 days from completion to call them, because like that's in the thing is that you have to call them within 30 days to register.
Right, and that's
to
what I'm saying.
tell
So
them-
if I on purpose made a restricted firearm,
Them.
I would to comply with the way the Firearms Act is written, I would need to call and register it and get a registration certificate number,
yeah. At
and I'd
which
probably have
point
to
they-
serialize it.
Well, but at which point they issue you an FRT and you need to put that on the firearm. You wouldn't have a serial number because you're not manufacturing a firearm and it doesn't need a serial number. And even though it's a restricted and registered item, you still couldn't sell it.
And I'm perfectly okay with all of that, because I would have a really cool shotgun that would
But
confuse
They
everyone.
would issue you an FRT number in order to do that. And this is the other thing that like shows that the whole FRT thing is ridiculous, because up until I guess the other day, legally you could manufacture your own non-restricted firearm, of which there would be no FRT number. So there is no requirement for a firearm to have an FRT number, which again shows that the FRT thing is opinion and not law, because you're not legally obligated to have one, because for homemade firearms that you keep for yourself, you don't fucking need one.
So just to clarify, if I make a Sten gun, it's definitely still prohib though?
I would
Unless
say
you make
yes.
a semi-auto 18.6-inch barrel length Sten gun, yes.
Doesn't a Sten gun always fire on an open bolt?
So apparently, and Benny's the one that originally, and I was like, how does a open bolt semi-auto work? But apparently there are semi-auto made in Canada where they took dewadded Sten guns and fucked around with them and made semi-auto Sten guns that were restricted.
I mean, I kind of want a semi-auto Sten gun because that does sound cool, but also I'd really like a regular Sten gun.
Well, I'm just saying though, so the fact that Sten guns are not prohibited by name, they would have been prohibited by the fact of them just being full auto.
All right. So, boys, we're going to Moosonee. You're going to have to stop at the Home Depot first.
We don't even need to go to Moosonee if, well, I guess we need to get an FBL. But if we get an FBL, then we could make 18.6-inch barrel semi-auto Sten guns.
Okay, maybe
Which
that
would
was a
look
level
stupid.
a level of detail that we didn't quite need to explore, but for reasons I would like a Sten gun.
Yeah, but could you imagine how ridiculous that would look if you made like a
It would be like
a
as though the government had made a
non-restricted,
firearm.
yeah. You've seen what they've done to gas cans. This would be the government firearm. So we still have that ugly like stock that's just like a tube with a flat piece on the back. Yeah. And we have a ridiculously long barrel. Yeah. All right.
But I would
Sounds
have a
good.
homemade machine gun, and that would be cool.
Well, a homemade
Yes.
semi-auto.
I said what I said.
Yeah. I still don't get how a semi-auto.
I don't
open bolt
understand a
thing works, yeah.
semi-auto open bolt.
Apparently, someone
mechanically.
black magic that it
Yeah,
exists. That's a way. Yeah.
I'm sure. I don't understand conceptually
It's-
how you could make a semi-auto open bolt.
Yeah, because the whole runaway bolt thing is just open
A
bolt
thing.
guns, where if you don't stop it, you're going to have that, like, you take your finger off and you still get that thing where the bolt goes. Yeah, I don't know.
In any event, book club coming up. Last Monday of the month, we do book club. I would hope after 2 years, everybody has figured the schedule out.
Yeah.
But I guess any show could be somebody's first show, which if you listen to us the last Monday in January, your first show will be True North Tradecraft Disaster Preparedness Guide, a primer on urban and suburban disaster preparedness.
Yeah.
And that gets about half the episode out of the way, because it's not a particularly dense read. It's no Gulag Archipelago.
No.
I'm just trying to trigger Gavin because I know Gavin's working on some salts and eats and
It was good, but it's long, very long.
that's what
That's
she
only
said.
volume 1. There's 2 more volumes.
I think it's going to be a good book club this month because we're going to talk about some preparedness stuff. Maybe we can talk to the Prepper Podcast people and see if somebody from Imitator CPP wants to come and hang out. Maybe we could get Ian back on. Ian from Prepper Podcast, not Ian from Court.
Yeah, different Ians.
Different Ians.
One has a better haircut than the other.
It's true. You could set your watch by our Ian's haircut.
Yeah.
If you want to come and hang out with us, we're on Discord. There's a link to Discord in the show notes. Show notes, as always, are on the website. Go to the website and /CPP in the episode number will get you to today's show notes. So this is episode 332. So if you go to our website and go /CPP332, you'll get today's show notes when I get them up, which should happen shortly after you hear the podcast. It might even be up before you listen to the podcast, depending on the delay there. What I'm saying is it takes a minute between when I publish the RSS feed and when the website updates. That's all I'm getting at.
Yeah, but also if you join the Discord, you can find it about fun things like when we go on hikes and stuff and invite people.
It's true.
Yeah.
We should probably
As
schedule
long
a
as
hike
you
for
live in the
February.
bigger butthole.
Well, you're still welcome to join us.
On Discord,
Yeah,
we have
I'm
we
trying.
have set
I'm
up
trying.
like a mutual listener get together if you live in an
Yeah.
area with some people thing, so you can try and coordinate
Yeah.
people in your local area to do some stuff together.
Yeah,
Because we've talked about it before. I maybe we should. I don't know. Maybe that's another one of those topics that could be a whole show. Is like, as a straight white man, how do I make friends as an adult? Like, it's
Yeah.
really hard.
Let
to
me
make
know when
friends
that
as an
episode
adult.
is. I'm gonna bring my notebook.
all right.
I'm gonna take notes and take advice from you guys.
I don't know that we should take advice. I can tell you how I met Gavin, but you don't want to hear the story. And I could
Yeah.
probably tell you how I met Brian.
I don't-
I mean, you probably don't want to hear that story either.
I mean,
I don't
it
think
involves shooting guns. Weird.
Yeah.
as long as it didn't end in a sword fight and one of you died.
No.
Not yet.
Definitely
No.
not.
Never cross swords.
That's right. Don't cross the street.
Yeah, well, unless there's like a giant marshmallow monster, and then you definitely have to cross streams.
I mean, fair enough. Maybe at some point we should do that as a topic show, though. How to make friends as an adult. But if you do want
Yeah.
to hang out with some people of
Now, just join the Discord.
overlapping
Yeah.
interest,
Yeah.
Discord.
Yeah.
Go and make some friends. We found out that there's 2 people in Manitoba that live near each other.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
I learned there were 2 people in Manitoba.
One of them's our
Willingly?
CPP, but that's beside the point.
Well, they both are, and they're
Really?
both trying to infiltrate the group. But whatever, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, go hang out on Discord, and if you're in Southern Ontario, Gavin and I are gonna talk about setting up a hike in February. So if you want to come hang out with us, and you're say west of Toronto and south of Barrie, somewhere in that, the southern part of Ontario.
So the bottom of the sphincter?
Like, not quite
Yes.
like the
Southern
sphincter,
part.
but like the outer sphincter, if you will.
I will not.
The hoop. The hoop.
Southern
So,
Ontario.
so the
South-
outer starfish, not the inner starfish.
Definitely
Exactly.
not the inner. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, maybe we should ask about Pierre. Where can everybody find you if they want an inappropriately printed T-shirt? Because I feel like this is right up your alley at this point.
Someone's getting a shirt in the mail. Yes. Off the wall customizing, Instagram, Facebook, whatever other stuff my wife set it up, or off the wall customizing at Gmail. We'll print you
I
anything.
can confirm that email does work.
Yes. Actually, everybody on. No, you're the only one. Everybody else is all on our group chat. But yeah, the email works.
Well, I know from personal experience now.
Yes.
Brian, if people want to send you feedback, what's the best way to do that? You have social media?
They can
Wanna talk
either
about the show?
contact the show. Yeah, contact the show at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email it at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com.
Sweet. Gavin, where can everybody find you?
When I'm not here complaining about the government and not giving you legal advice, you can find me on the gram, UrbexGTA. Or like get on the Discord. I'm not there frequently, but when we organize an event, I will be there.
If you want to find me, you have to go look in a 10,000 hectare plot in northern Ontario. Listen for the sound of Sten guns.
Are they those ones with the rubber baffles though? Because you're gonna have to get really close to hear those ones.
That's a
Or the
problem,
sound of
bro.
a 3D printer.
Yeah.
What noise does illicit opiate manufacturing sound like?
I mean,
It's like
I could
if
tell
a
you,
tree
but then
falls
I'd
in
give
the
away all
forest,
my
does it
secrets.
actually make a sound?
Exactly.
If I do have a product which I have not manufactured that I could sell you, you could go check out RagnarokTactical.ca. Use the discount code Patriot when you check out. Save yourself some money. I think I'm probably going to butcher this. I think I got an email from somebody the other day who was a show listener. I included something in their package and they sent me a very nice email about it. I think they were a show listener, and the reason that it sticks out in my mind is because I believe they had used the discount code. But now that I've said that, that's probably not true, and that guy's probably unhappy. Well, if he ever hears this.
Yeah.
So
Well,
use the discount code. Literally take money out of my child's savings account for his university. But buy yourself some tactical accessories, first aid supplies, all that good stuff that we have at RagnarokTactical.ca. Brian mentioned it. Send us your feedback.
308s.
Yeah.
That's right. I'll take all the single shot 308s you want. Also, all the Sten guns you want. Also, all the 3D printed anythings.
Yes.
Also, if you have 10,000 acres of unused, undeveloped land in northern Ontario.
Yeah. Preferably in
Or
and
Alberta.
around the Moosonee area.
I'm just trying to think about where's the lowest density population I can think of in Ontario that's still got a name.
Moosonee. It's got to be within a 10-minute drive to Moosonee, but
I don't
nobody's
know.
going to hear anything. Anyway,
I'm pretty sure if we get enough people to just take over Manitoulin Island.
And there's so many boomers there, though.
Yeah.
Oh,
For
we'll
now.
just kick them out.
We'll just send a few people with COVID on first, and then problem solved.
One of those Decepticon variants.
Yeah.
I have to apologize to Rod Giltaca. We couldn't get Rod on the show, but as we mentioned earlier, I do think I'm going to pester the CCFR about this range day thing because I really like
Next
this
time,
idea.
Rod. We love you, Rod. Love you, buddy.
The opinions of the individual podcast panelists may not reflect the values of management or ownership of Canadian Patriot Podcast, and things Gavin says in jest are definitely not to be considered as legal advice.
That's true.
In my defense, I've been drinking.
Me too. Copious amounts.
He's been
of whiskey.
drinking free Kool-Aid.
Well, I want that part played back at my trial. That's
Yeah.
I've had 2 very big glasses of whiskey, so can confirm.
for all of our listeners out there in podcast land. I would like to remind you that